we've been consolidating basically between 32 and 3,400. And I think we're close to a level or to a juncture where I could see gold taking off again, and silver will take off as well, I think. And technically, it looks pretty good. What will cause it is difficult to say. Could be the economy, could be Trump and his fight against Jay Powell. I heard he's going to nominate the new chairman, I think very soon this week or something, even though they can only take over in May. But just coming out with a name might, yeah, spur things along. And also geopolitically, Chris, I think there's a lot of trouble out there geopolitically, and it looks like, again, Trump has gone from someone who is pushing for peace to someone who's looking quite belligerent for now.
Well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. Although today we are joined by someone else that all of you gold and silver lovers know quite well, because my old friend Mario, Maneco64 of the Maneco, well, I guess Maneco64 is probably not your legal last name, but of the Maneco64 fame, where he dodges the conditions in the banking world in London. Mario, I imagine you like swooping between JP Morgan and Lloyd's of London and dodging any banker nonsense and chicanery. And obviously, you talk quite a bit about gold and silver, which is on a lot of people's minds these days in the midst of a volatile financial year. So great to have you back on here, Mario. It's been too long. My apologies on that, but nice to see you again. And how are you today, sir?
Yes, Chris, it's been a while since we've spoken. I'm well, and yeah, happy to be here speaking with you.
Yeah, well, it was at least a couple of years. So I'm guessing if the last time we recorded one of these, if either of us had said, "Ah, gold's going to be 3,400," you would have seen some confusion in the comments, to put it kindly. But nonetheless, here we are, and obviously quite a rally over the last 18 months. We hit the 3,500 mark a couple months ago. Kind of floated around in this range for a while, despite last week's sell-off. Here we are back at 34.27, not far off the 35.09 high of all time and of this cycle. While silver, despite last week's sell-off, is doing all right on a Monday, back up over $37. So with that said, any thoughts on the rally we've seen? And also, especially, I know people were concerned last week's sell-off, and I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, gold has been, of course, outperforming silver. 2, 3 years ago, if you told me gold would be where it is now, I would have thought silver would be way over 40, maybe even making new highs. So silver has caught up a little bit in the last month or two with gold. We've broken back below that 100 level gold silver ratio. And I think last week it was the usual suspects, options expiry. So they smacked gold and silver. But I think they've rebounded quite well in the last couple of days, especially after the jobs numbers we saw on Friday. And I think gold, yeah, we reached that 3,500 level back in April. So we've been consolidating basically between 32 and 3,400. And I think we're close to a level or to a juncture where I could see gold taking off again, and silver will take off as well, I think. And technically it looks pretty good. What will cause it is difficult to say. Could be the economy, could be Trump and his fight against Jay Powell. I heard he's going to nominate the new chairman, I think very soon this week or something, even though they can only take over in May. But just coming out with a name might, yeah, spur things along. And also geopolitically, Chris, I think there's a lot of trouble out there geopolitically, and it looks like again Trump has gone from someone who is pushing for peace to someone who's looking quite belligerent for now.
Yeah, well, several great points you had there. And just on that last one with the geopolitical, I did hear a Martin Armstrong interview over the weekend. There's different views on Martin, although he said his model is now picking up a 100% chance of some sort of nuclear tension, not necessarily a city being wiped out, but we'll just say it does not look not headed in a positive direction there right now. So certainly that is a risk. Mario, although on a perhaps more cuddly note, would you care to venture a guess of who our next Fed chairman is? We're recording August 4th. Do you want to lodge a pick on the record here?
Yeah, I mean, some people think it could be Julie Shelton. I'm not sure it will be her, but there's a guy called Kevin Hassett, Hassett, I think, and maybe also Kevin Warsh. I think that could be a pick because he seems to be in tune with what Trump wants to do. They're even talking about merging more the Fed and the Treasury into one. And so, yeah, Kevin
Why
Warsh would,
not?
yeah, why not? Just yeah, print the money that you need to borrow, right? That's normal. So yeah, Kevin Warsh is my pick. Even though Chris, you probably heard that there were rumors a few weeks ago, and it came via Bloomberg that he was thinking of
Listen.
Scott Besson. Yeah, that would be interesting as well. I think that would be very bullish for gold.
Yeah, well, I mean, Besson in that great interview with Tucker Carlson, he even mentioned he's like back at the office, my friends called me Goldbug, and just imagine him pulling out in the parking lot. It's like, hey Joe, hi Goldbug, and yeah, I hear a lot of Kevin Warsh as well, who promised regime change, which you would think would catch Trump's attention. I've heard people say Judy Shelton. I'm along your school of thought. I maybe of the choices would pick her, although I don't see that necessarily happening. So, yes, although back to gold and silver, you mentioned the rebound we had from Friday. Now, this is the one I mentioned before we started recording. What do you think is the lowest gold and silver price that we ever see again?
Yeah, I mean, you put me on the spot, but I will try to bring something to the table. I guess 3,000 looks like a very good base now for gold. Before like 2024, I was still really bullish gold, and I had this trend line that I drew from like the 70s on a logarithmic chart, and it gave me 2,700 as a key level going forward. And we went towards that level. We broke above it, and then after the election, after November 5th, 2024, gold corrected quite sharply, and I think it went back to like 2,300 or so. So I think we've retested that trend line where 2,700 was the key level, but now that line is going up. So I suspect anywhere between 2,700 and 3,000 will be a floor now for gold. For silver, I'd say 30. I don't think if I had to guess or prognosticate, it would be the base now would be 30 for silver. I don't see it. I mean, you never know with the bullion banks, they can try and do anything, but I think it's getting harder and harder for them to throw paper at the market, mainly because countries like China, they need the real thing like you have on behind you there. They don't need paper, they need real silver to develop their infrastructure. I mean, they have a huge country, a huge economy, and they're growing and they need a lot of silver. So I think the paper boys are going to be in trouble. They need to run for the hills and cover their shorts.
Well, I hear you. Actually, speaking of which, great question. I'd love to get your opinion on. We hear a lot about how the COMEX short position is actually the hedge of the London holdings, and the COMEX short position now currently not at the all-time high as of last Friday, but pretty darn close. What is your view on that? How much of this do you think is actually hedged?
Well, that's what they tell us, that it's all hedged. But I've spoken with Eric Young, King Kong, and he's done a lot of research on the EFP
Mhm.
situation. And yes, it's hedged against the EFP, exchange for physical, on the LBMA. But at the same time, it's almost as if they're not really trading physical. EFP stands for exchange for physical. So, yeah, they might be hedging, but they're hedging paper. They're not really hedging real physical silver. And I think that's the problem. And I try to I mean just keep an eye on price and technicals. I don't really look that closely at open interest, COMEX, LBMA, because I think eventually, Chris, demand for real physical silver is gonna overwhelm these paper shenanigans, and I still think it's paper shenanigans. You know, why should banks have such huge positions in silver? I mean, we haven't used silver as money since the 60s. So there's no excuse for them to be doing that. And I don't really think, yeah, to say they're hedging for producers is a little bit of a stretch. I think they're doing it for the central banks, for the Fed, Bank of England. They don't hold any silver, but silver is like a canary in the coal mine for the system. So yeah, they're going to keep trying, but I think, as I said, there's people who want the real thing, and that's going to make it more and more difficult for them to keep things under wraps. And I thought we'd get to 40 a lot quicker, but yeah, there's always a way for them to kind of delay things. The options expiry always seem to be like a time period where they come after trying to protect strike prices. And I think the next one is August for silver's somewhere August 28th. So who knows? We could see some fireworks before then to the upside.
Yeah, well, I used to do that each month, look at the option expiration. That was actually my background, trading options as a market maker. And I remember talking to a friend of mine. He went over and traded silver, or not silver, sugar options for a while. And he was trading not as part of a company, but as a local, as they would call it. And eventually stopped because every month it would just always like pin there. And without getting into options, it makes it hard for the market maker to hedge. And seemed to happen like clockwork. So, and Mario, the other thing that you touch on there about it's getting harder to manage the silver supply. If you actually take the LBMA vaults, I think you'll appreciate this. And then they have the amount of silver they have listed, and then some of it's being held for the ETFs. And then I was thinking, well, if the COMEX short is the hedge for that amount of silver in London, if you subtract that out too, we were down to like 7 or 8 million ounces in terms of I know Daniel Galley of TD Securities, he's talked about how the free float has been coming down. If you actually if that metal is there as part of a hedge, then you get dangerously low. But anyway, here's another one that I would love to get your opinion on. We have this guy, Stephen Myron, the chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors. He wrote a paper in November of 2024, User's Guide to Restructuring the Global Trading System, and mentioned a lot of stuff like the root of economic imbalance lies in persistent dollar overvaluation. I won't go through all 41 pages now, but he said a lot of things like that. Then a month later, Trump nominates him for that position. We've heard Bessent, we've heard Vance, we've heard Trump talk. Trump was out talking about the weaker dollar last week again. I've also heard a thesis that they've been intervening in the markets. So my question to you, sir, is that here's when Trump came in, got up to 110 in early January. Do you think they are already devaluing the dollar? They said they want to do it. The dollar's gotten clobbered since they came in. What do you think is going on there?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons the dollar is coming down, and I haven't heard many people speak about this, and I could be wrong, someone might want to correct me, is that if you impose tariffs on imports, and I say that because Trump seems to think that the tariffs are on the countries that sell this stuff, and it's not. But if you do that, you're going to cut out a lot of the foreign trade that the U.S. does. And what that's going to do, that means, foreigners are not going to be receiving as many dollars as they used to because they're not going to be selling as much to the U.S. So what happens there, Chris, is that they will have less demand for treasuries and dollars. So I think that's what the dollar index is forecasting that yeah, the U.S. is going to become a lot more autarkic. That's a strange word, but it means that you are more self-sufficient. And if that happens, why will countries need to use the dollar, right? Because America is going to close its doors to foreign goods. I think that's one of the reasons. But and I think that they're also trying to weaken the dollar. Like you said, Trump said he likes the sound of a strong dollar, but he said we make a hell of a lot more money with a weak dollar. So yeah, so that's what's going on, and I think. And it's true that that's the only reason the U.S. has been running a huge trade and current account deficits because the dollar is too strong. But at the same time, he wants the Fed to cut rates down to one. That would yeah, that would probably do the trick because if anything, the dollar should be going up in the last this year because well, the ECB has been cutting, the Bank of England has been cutting, the Swiss have been cutting, and the Fed's held pat. So yeah, I think it's the trade policy of Trump that's yeah pushing the dollar lower, and I don't think they have a problem with that because I remember, or I don't remember, but I know the history. Back in 67 or 68, the Chancellor of the Exchequer here in the UK, he said, we're going to devalue the pound, but the pound in your pocket is still the same. They try to fool the public. And I think Nixon as well, when he made his announcement on August 15th, 1971, he said, well, the dollar is going to be the same at home. It's just going to be a little more expensive if you go abroad. So I think that's the way they're looking at it. And well, that's bullish for anything that's not the dollar, especially precious metals. But unfortunately, Chris, I think a lot of people, vast majority of the public, they don't understand that, and they're gonna be left holding the bag of rapidly depreciating fiat dollars, and they're already doing so because, like you showed there, the dollar has lost 10% this year versus fiat currencies that aren't that much better than the dollar, if anything worse.
Yeah, and then once it all happens, they can blame it on the speculators and wash, rinse, and repeat.
Yeah.
Actually,
I mean, President Trump, he finds scapegoats all over the place. I mean, he just sacked the BLS, the head of the BLS. So,
that was my next one I was going to pull up here. Although before we do that, I think you might appreciate made a mistake.
yeah, I've seen that
But
one. That's a good one. Yeah.
bought some shitty assets back in the day. Yeah, but Mario, like you point out there, let's get this up because it kind of happened later in the day on Friday, and hopefully by that point, people were wrapping up their week or doing something more useful in life than seeing this one. I'm guessing if the number came in greater than expected, we wouldn't have had an issue, but here, and of course, it's Biden's fault. And I know you've been well aware, as well as most of our audience listening today, that all of these numbers are basically complete fiction to begin with. But Um, Especially at a time where you have, though, this concern about the independence of the Treasury and the Fed, which, again, I think is rather silly. If you go back to what Volcker wrote about how James Baker came in and said, you're not raising interest rates before the election. So I don't know if we've ever had any independence. Maybe they could coordinate and work together to find a solution, yet still you have Trump telling the Fed what to do. Now, this seems like a blurry line to cross here, but what do you say?
Yeah, I mean, the 73,000 number is actually was the expectation. Because I always look at that before the numbers come out, because having worked in the markets, what the markets expect and what comes out is really important to determine what the market will do on that day. And so the expectation was 100 or 110,000. So it wasn't that bad of a miss. And 100,000 already is not really a great economy. I think the US needs over 200,000 non-farm payroll additions every month to keep up with the demographic situation. So, yeah, I think what he didn't like were the revisions for the previous 2 months, which dropped, resulted in a subtraction of like 258,000. But like you said, these numbers, they're just like surveys, and they extrapolate from the surveys how much non-farm payrolls went up. So is he also going to complain about CPI, that they've
It's,
doctored CPI since the 1980s and it should be more like 10 of 12%? I'm sure he won't. I'm sure you'll find a way to make it look even lower. So, yeah, I think it's a bad precedent. And I saw Professor Stephen Hanke just before we came on, because he says some interesting stuff, and he was on like a TV, and someone asked him about that, and he said, "Well, it's like the Potomac, Caracas on the Potomac. It's the kind of stuff that Maduro would do, sack his statistics, the head of the statistics market." So, yeah, I don't think it's a good thing. Yeah, but I guess it gives Trump a bit of a cover. He wants to find if the economy slows down, he can say, "Oh, well, it was this that happened. It wasn't me." So it's. I never thought a president would do that after a weak number, to come out and on the day and say, "I'm going to sack the head of the BLS." You could at least wait maybe a couple of weeks and ask the head to like resign because of personal reasons or something, make it a little bit less obvious.
who knows? Maybe he just found out and he was watching some Maneco64 in the background on Friday while he was reading Zero Hedge and is like, hey, we got to do something here. So, but yes, it seems inherently silly to.
Or maybe Chris, maybe some people think he's doing a controlled demolition because the US has so much debt. So what do? You just like really wreck the system by doing stuff like that. You go at the Fed and its independence, you go at the statistics offices. Who knows? It's difficult to know what to believe these days, So he could be to the public saying everything's great, we got the hottest economy, but at the same time, behind the scenes, he's trying to bring it down, and he'll have, of course, a lot of cover for that, like with the trade war or tariff war. He'll have a lot of people to blame. So that could be it as well. And it could solve a big problem of debt for the US.
Yeah, well, that leads into my next question, where again, who knows? I get the feeling that what they say publicly is quite different from what they're discussing privately. Maybe that's just me, although what they said publicly, and I've had a couple people ask me this recently, so we'll get your opinion. What up with that Fort Knox audit?
Yeah, I mean, even Trump said we needed that they weren't sure if the gold was there. And then Besson came out and said, "Oh, we do an audit every year," which isn't really
which is not true.
not factual. Yeah, I don't want to say.
Have you ever heard, apologize for interrupting, but I think you know Jan Nieuwenhuis, who's done a lot of research. Have you ever heard we did a call with him a couple months back. He went through some of the history. Hey, it's definitely not every year. And I mean, basically what he described, if you purchased metal from a bullion dealer and they described that that's how they were running, you would not go back. Did you ever heard his description of the chain of events?
No, I didn't hear that, even though I do read his stuff. But I mean, I think a lot of people think that believe that there's not that much gold left at Fort Knox. That the reason Nixon closed the gold window is because most of the gold was gone. But maybe that's one of the reasons why there's so much. I think the COMEX deliveries this year are up massively compared to last year. So maybe they came out with the audit thing. It was, I think Elon Musk started asking it, and then Trump asked for it, and then Besant went to them and said, "Shut up. We can't, we need to get the gold first before we can do an audit." So maybe it's the US government that's taking all the physical out of COMEX, or there's a lot of physical gold going into the US as well, late last year and early this year. So who knows? But yeah, like you said, that's gone off the radar. The audit. I guess now they're trying. You know, they said a lot of things that is they're trying to get off the radar. I'm not gonna get into that guy who Jeffrey, the Jeffrey guy, Epstein.
I hear you. So do you think at some point they'll give us an audit? Do you think they went in, and obviously we're guessing here, but do you think they actually started to do an audit and found something that was problematic, or any feel for care to venture a guess on that?
Well, I think Trump didn't really know that there was no gold there, and he would never have thought that it wouldn't be there, and that's why he called for it. But then someone must have come to him and said, "Mr. President, you need to stop mentioning that because there isn't any gold there." So I think they're trying to bring it back, and if they do revalue or monetize the Treasury's assets, which is what Besant said he would do. The most liquid one would be gold. So I think, and to prove it needs to be realistic and credible. So the gold needs to be there, and then they'll say we're gonna revalue the statutory price from 42.22 to let's say 3,500. And yeah, I think that's the plan.
Well, if we need things to be realistic and accountable, we may be in trouble. But I made a note here. I'm gonna see. I assume there's like some White House office you can email. I'm gonna email and say, "Hey, you guys said this. Any?" I'm not expecting an answer, but at home, if you're watching and you want to email them too, and maybe we can find out where that stands. More importantly, though, which I guess would be contingent upon that, but do you think that at the end of the day that all of this has to at some point end with an upward gold revaluation of some form?
Yeah, I
I think we're
mean,
headed there.
yeah, I mean, gold is the only way to devalue the dollar and all other fiat currencies without a race. Yeah, like you can't devalue the dollar against the euro. It doesn't work devaluing against other fiats because everyone's going to try to do the same thing, and it's like a race to the bottom. So the only monetary asset that won't respond to you is gold, right? So yeah, that would solve all the problems. It's the common denominator. So yeah, I think even if they don't revalue officially, the statutory price, it's going to keep happening, Chris, because the debt is so huge, not just in the U.S. but all over the West and even China. That the only way to keep the debt going is to make that debt worth less, and the debt, of course, is denominated in fiat currency. But there is a danger though that it goes too far and those currencies just disappear, which will mean you won't be able to buy any gold or silver with the currencies, and that's like hyperinflation.
I hear you. Hopefully, we don't get to that point. Although I have two final questions before we wrap up. And obviously,
The
here's a
stuff is also quite
personal
heavy, as you know.
hero.
So, but well, I think these things sometimes get forgotten.
There's a lot that gets forgotten. I will never forget this clip, though, because after he explained that gold is heavy, did they ever clear up some of them lorries, or is there still the delay there? I'm just curious if you've ever heard any follow up because they had delays in getting gold to customers, which might add was not grandma's, 5 gold, what do you guys have? The Britannias.
Sovereigns?
I
Yeah.
mean, I'm thinking, I mean, I actually looked on their webpage. They're like sovereigns, large institutional funds, and I'm saying,
No,
gee,
but
you'd probably say everything possible if you're in that position before we can't get you your gold back for 4 to 8 weeks. But any update or thoughts on that?
yeah, I mean, I think they've been able to kind of calm things down by getting the countries that hold gold at the Bank of England to lease it out. So I would be concerned if I were these countries, like for example, Australia, they hold all their gold with the Bank of England, which I
Oops.
think is really stupid. 80 tons, which isn't that much, but yeah, I'm not sure what the spot delivery is, but yeah, like you said, at the end of January, if you bought gold spot from through the LBMA, you're waiting 4 to 8 weeks, which is basically a default. So yeah, that guy was really funny. I mean, who would have thunk it that gold is heavy?
He's back there lifting the bars by hand. So what are you gonna
Yeah.
do? Final one, Mario. We talk a lot on here about silver supply. Certainly doesn't seem to be lining up ideally, especially with the plan for a greener than green world. Similar with copper. I know you're digging into these things. Do you think this is headed towards a point where, I mean, right now we've been seeing the inventories get eaten into, a little bit less so the public inventories, although a lot of retail silver has been sold over the past couple of years. Do you think that we ultimately get to someday where there's, hey, this company was not able to get what they need and there's a scramble? Do you think we get there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've had, I think, is it 5 years of a silver supply deficit? And I don't think it's improving. And it takes a long time, Chris, to, well, first you have to make a big find, silver find, and then you have to build the mine, and that takes a few years to do that.
Or in some cases, decades, but
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's highly possible that would happen, and we kind of saw that back in 2021 silver squeeze. I mean, they were able to snuff that out with what's his name, Jeffrey, the guy from Goldman Sachs.
Curry.
Jeff Curry, yeah, we hedge the ETF. We go short the ETF, or it's like crazy. And and then the guy from the CFTC, we had to tamp down.
Wait. Hold on a second. I know we're not going to cheat you, and I've been upping my game in the background here. So on.
In terms of thinking about how you're going to create a squeeze, the shorts are the ETFs. The ETFs buy the physical, they turn around and they sell on the COMEX.
Which, by the way, is explicitly forbidden in the SLV prospectus, but
I
we'll leave
know.
it aside
Well,
for
I
now.
noticed he's not at Goldman Sachs anymore. I think I don't know where he is, but
He's solving other world problems, and I'm sure our next Fed Treasury will just quantitatively ease the silver supply as is.
Yeah, maybe he'll be the next Fed chairman.
Yeah, Jeff Currybomb for Fed chair. I'm on board with that. That would be fun. And fortunately, if we get that wonderful occurrence, Mario, can you just let folks know where you'll be tracking all of the action and theatrics in these years ahead?
Yeah, my YouTube channel is at Maneco64. And yeah, I publish a video or an interview, yeah, virtually every day. And I'm also on Twitter or X at Maneco64. Yeah, I've got 27,000 followers there. And the reason I say that is because there are a few copycats. So you got to be careful on X.
Well, there is only one Mario Maneco64. By the way, I think you just became a cult hero of my buddy Colin. He's a big Jeff Curry fan. Let's just say it like that. Maybe has an action figure or two. So, Mario, I really appreciate you making some time. Fun to catch up again. Wacky stuff happening out there in the world, but hopefully this was helpful. I enjoyed your perspective today, and we'll have to find a time to do this again soon, my friend.
Thank you. And it was nice speaking with you again, Chris.
Well, thank you, and I'll talk to you soon. Well, thank you to Mario. Always fun to catch up with him, and has been far too long, although it's just great to see how well his channel is doing and see some of the fun things that he covers there. And it's great to hear his thoughts on some of my gold and silver questions. So hope you enjoyed that at home. And before we wrap up, did just also want to thank First Majestic Silver, who kindly brought us today's video. And First Majestic, obviously a lot of changes in the past year. You have the acquisition of Gato Silver, which has now been fully incorporated and has led to a much larger production base. And especially as we sit here with $37 silver today, will be exciting to see how the numbers for the second quarter look, which, as you can see, if you scroll all the way down to their latest press release, the company will be hosting conference call and webcast on Thursday, August 14th at 8 a.m. So that's next Thursday. Be exciting to see how the numbers look. And fortunately, I did catch up with Keith recently, about a month ago, at the Rick Rule Symposium, and to hear the latest from Keith and how things are looking there, as well as some of his thoughts on the silver rally, well, just click on the one that's coming your way now.